Okay, moving on to probability. Okay, so number 40 says Mrs. Miller, that's me, randomly distributing 15 rulers with centimeter labels and 10 rulers without centimeter labels. Like we have here, what is the probability that the first ruler will have centimeter labels? Make sure first is with centimeters, and that the second will not. So second without centimeters. So anytime you're finding the probability of multiple things happening either at the same time or one right after the other, you multiply the individual probabilities together. Okay, so the probability of the first with centimeters times the probability of the second without. Okay, so here we go. The probability of the first has centimeters. Well, there are 15 with centimeters and 25 total, right? So that's the probability of the first one. Now, suppose that I have just handed one ruler and it had centimeter labels to the first student. That means that there are only 24 left to choose from, and we want to find what the probability is that the next one will not have centimeter labels. Well, we can assume that we handed a one with centimeter labels out to the first person, so that there are still 10 that do not have centimeter labels left. All right, so now I would highly recommend reducing these fractions before you do anything else. You can multiply and then reduce later, but it's going to be a kind of a mess to reduce. So I know I can divide both 10 and 24 by 2, and I get 5 and 12. So let's do that first. I also know 5 and 25, that can reduce to 1 and 5. And then 15 and 5, that comes out to 3 and 1. So I did that really fast, but this is so awesome that it's on video. You all can rewind if you want. So we're left with a 3 and a 12, right? And that reduces to 1/4. Okay, so here we go with number 41. A box contains 15 cards labeled 1 to 15. What's the probability that when one card is drawn, only one, it is either an odd card or an even card? Okay, so the probability that you draw an odd or an even. Okay, odd or an even. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So when you're finding the probability of one thing happening or another, you're adding the probabilities together. So probability of odd plus the probability of an even. Okay, so if we look here, the probability of drawing an odd is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 out of 15. And the even, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 15, is 15 out of 15 or 1. If we also think about that logically, the probability of drawing one or the other, well, if that's all that's in the box, there's a 100% probability that you're going to draw one or the other. So, something to, again, use logic before you start trying to do a bunch of crazy calculations. Okay, we want to classify, we're switching gears now, classifying conic sections. 5x squared minus 4y squared minus 100 equals 0. That's number 42. Now, with all of these problems, you want to look at the x squared term and the y squared term. So like we talked about in class, if we have opposite signs of the x squared and y squared term, we automatically, no matter what, have a hyperbola. So that is the situation here, hyperbola. So we have a positive x squared and negative y squared. No matter what, that's a hyperbola. So that's easy. Number 43, let's look at that. 49x squared, 9y squared, 196x, 245 equals 0. So again, x squared, y squared. They're both positive, which means we either have a circle or an ellipse, but we have different coefficients, which means it's going to be longer in one direction than the other, which means we have an ellipse. Okay. See how easy and fast these are if you know your stuff? Study, 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 you guys. Because you have a relatively short amount of time to do all of these problems. You don't want to get stuck because you didn't prepare. Okay, so again, look for x squared and y squared, except in this case, do we have a y squared? No, we don't. If you only have one squared term, you only have a parabola, okay? So it's as easy as that. I didn't circle that, okay? So let's see time-wise. Let's go ahead and next few are graphing hyperbolas. Let's go ahead and switch to another video, okay?